Hi guys, a warm welcome to the Niels van Roij Design channel. Another request from you guys, have a look Niels please at the new Lexus IS and specifically the latest addition to the IS family, the sportier, seriously sporty actually, F. So we're looking at a video today of that car being introduced. Let's go. Let's stop it there again. I mean, utterly Japanese. Utterly Japanese, right? The way it opens up, the layeredness, the sort of, a PlayStation kind of look and feel, digital, beautiful red outlines here and there, nice touches, strong typography, very nice. Well done. Okay, front end view of the new IS. Very bold. It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I think relevant. This car is clearly Japanese. It's not a German car, it's not an English car, it's not an Italian car, it's Japanese. It's manga, it's Transformer kind of, very Japanese. Interesting surfacing, bold graphics, very bold, and equally bold surfacing actually. I think, perhaps not a natural beauty, it's not an overly elegant car, but I take this any day of the week over the C-Class. Why? Because it's an honest design. It tells you, it's not maybe, like I said, this perfect natural beauty, but it's a super interesting car. And yeah, that to me is way more relevant than always going for this soft, natural beauty, seen this 1,000 times kind of car design. Very intricate. Loads of details, obviously, this wide stance, the tail lights that push out towards the sides, getting this sort of diagonal stance into the car, kind of samurai cuts, very precise, again linking to the Japanese Toyota Lexus engineering. Otherwise quite clean. It's a bit hard to see, but the surfacing of the number plate emboss, it links down towards the wheels as well, again emphasizing this width and this beautiful wide stance. Let me give you a quick insight on this. The reason I'm laughing is a little while ago I was able to borrow an RCF. So a bit more up, but a beautiful Lexus, a performance Lexus as well. And I took a couple of people with me, a client actually in that car, and I put it into Sport Plus, thinking, well, this is a Japanese brand, so surely they won't turn off, all the safety and security systems. Apparently, that's exactly what Sport Plus does. So, I pulled away from a traffic light with maybe a tiny bit too much throttle. And the car went completely sideways. And we nearly ended up, we were on a flyover, basically. And we nearly ended up off the flyover into the bushes. So this was a quick trip down memory lane. Fortunately, I was able to save the car, or perhaps the car saved me in the end. I don't know, maybe there was some little angel still alive. It reminded me of my own adventures with a Lexus F. Again, this is ideal now. Of course, these wild cuts are interesting, but more from like a cinematic point of view. When we talking about car design, it's a bit hard to judge a car on shots like that. So this is a very interesting shot, I think, showcasing bold, fresh ideas around surfacing, around the skin of the car. Have a look at that bonnet. When you see that the power bulge in the middle, and then there is this line going from the A-pillar towards the grille. Those two aren't, radical or wildly innovative. But then there's like this swoop, like they took away a part of the clay coming from that A-pillar, and that, gets this interesting sort of twist in the surfacing, going towards that power bulge in the middle of the bonnet. Then the headlight. See how that daytime running light, let's call it that, this signature lighting is cutting into the surfacing. You've got a fairly simple, if you like, slightly focused headlight graphic, squarish, but then there's this cut, and that cut goes through the surfacing. So it's a very three-dimensional piece of design. Quite well executed. Again, beautiful. This mirror as well has the same sharp cuts, with the underside of the mirror being body colored, in this case red, and the top being black. Truly interesting. Let's have a look at the proportions of this car. Very Lexus in its surfacing. The front wheel could have been placed forwards a bit more. Obviously that's expensive, but you don't really see it unless you see the car in straight flat side view. But what you see here nicely is this, like I said, this bold surfacing. Also in the rear, that sharp sort of way of scooping out the clay, this negative surfaces, very concave and very convex again. Interesting contrast between the two. This kick up in the sill, very thin, again, sort of, I don't know, maybe samurai inspired, or at least that's how I interpret it, how I read the surfacing. This precision cut going upwards. Very interesting. So this is an excellent three-quarter view here, where you see this boldness in the surfacing. Look at the sill, for instance, how the sill is hollow in a way, moving upwards towards the door handle, and then there's layer, let's say, of the door sort of on top of that again. Very, very expressive, very bold. Interplay of graphics, so let's say the black elements in this case of the window outline, the tail lights, the headlights, the front intakes, in which more graphics are integrated. So there's an intake, if you like, in the intake, the lower almost spoiler area of the front bumper with the grille graphic. The spindle grille, very Lexus now, of course. Interesting details, I keep on saying this, but it feels utterly Japanese. This couldn't be a Mercedes-Benz, Cover the logo. It couldn't be a BMW. It couldn't be a Jag. It couldn't be an Alfa Romeo, despite the fact it's red. It's utterly a Lexus. And whether you like it or not, whether you think it's a pleasing car design or not, is, to my point of view, not even that relevant. Maybe sounds weird, but to always have the classical beauty as the aim, that's more sort of Roman, more Italian, if you like, than it is Japanese. And it needs to be celebrated that this is a Japanese car. Doesn't mean that I think it's ugly. Perhaps some of you might think so because I don't mention beauty, but not in, like I said, a classical sense. relevance to me is key in car design. So, looking at the interior, I think for a launch film like this, they should have definitely applied some color. It looks overly gray, but design-wise, again, Japanese, very Japanese. This strong, bold steering wheel, physical switchgear. Guys, do you see that on the steering wheel, on the center stack? Physical buttons, physical switchgear, and indeed there's a screen and there's this Lexus touchpad, which is maybe not the perfect solution. I've worked with it a bit, driven a couple of Lexuses, but it's still light years ahead compared to touch screens only. Tactile properties of these buttons are great as well. So they feel metal, they feel cold. There is a nice weight to them, this moving rev counter thing that Lexus does is obviously an awesome party trick. I would never opt it with black on black on black on black. I mean, come on, whose funeral is this? We're talking about an F car, an F Sport. A little bit of power would be nice, not just because this is an F, but also because it just helps elevating all the different graphics, the different elements. If everything's black, then nothing is black. You know what I mean? So the blacks get blacker if you put another type of material next to that. But that again is obviously a personal spec. The design quality of the interior, I think, is quite good. Door panels maybe a bit less interesting, a bit sort of generic, but yeah, I think the dashboard, utterly Japanese, really interesting interplay of different surfaces and different materials, and like I said, this sporty steering wheel. This is an interesting view again. In the studio, properly lit. Look at that boot lid. How on the far end of the car, the tail light, how thin the surface is on top of the tail light that sticks out a bit. Again, this is nothing new or typically Lexus. This is a trend, you could call it, in car design, where the plastic of the tail lights is very three-dimensional. So you see the signature of the taillights that we just discussed. The blackness in the taillight that is a bit further away, if you like. So the red is like physically coming out. And then on top of that black, there's a horizontal flat element of the taillight. And then there's this little step in the surfacing. And then there's this line going upwards, very concave, convex. It's this wild interplay, very bold expression in surfacing. I think the rear view and its three-dimensionality is very interesting. Slightly weird, maybe, is the only word I have for the shoulder on the right. So if you look at the rear door and the tail light line that runs into the door handle. I haven't seen the car in real life, so it's hard to judge, but this does look a little bit out of place. It would feel a bit stronger if it would move upwards slightly, perhaps to the top of the door handle already. So it would be continuing the shoulder line that runs from the front end of the car on top of these door handles, where it sort of seems to disappear, at least in the images I've seen so far. Nevertheless, you know, very bold and very interesting. This nice close-up here of that surface feature, let's call it that I just discussed in the beginning of the video. So around that bonnet, sort of scooped out and almost a negative surface. And this beautiful detail on the mirror, again, very Japanese, this endless eye for detail. You know, striving for perfection is obviously this Lexus thing, part of their DNA. So they've, I think, integrated that beautifully in the mirror as well. So this, again, interplay of very convex and very concave surfacing in the mirror. And then this interesting, I'm not sure if you call it a T-shape or perhaps boomerang-shaped element of chrome, on top of which the indicator is sitting, providing sort of a visual base as well. And then this chrome line underneath, and ending up sort of on the stalk, if you like. Just, you know, an endless love for detail, a really enjoyable piece of this car.